What's up, YouTube? Joe Catchpolia sitting on the couch, making some money investing in fractional real estate online, as usual. Today is Friday, so it's time for this week's installment of the 52-week challenge. This is where I tell you about all the fractional real estate that I bought this week and invite you to share what you've been buying, either in the comments to this video or to jump in the Discord and talk about it in the 52-week challenge channel, or as a lot of you like to do, feel free to DM me. Talk to me really anyway. I mean, the goal is to just continue to build a community where we're sharing insights, making an impact as far as the way we approach different platforms. If we're demanding some changes, or just really to help each other out to make sure that we're all making good decisions. When it comes to investing in fractional real estate, there's lots of new platforms popping up and all the time. There's changes to platforms. I think the more that we can share info, share strategies, talk about what we're doing, the better. It also is intended to be a little bit of a virtual accountability group. I know a lot of people get stuck in this analysis paralysis where they just want to look at deals and look at deals and look at deals and never pull the trigger. If that's you, committing to just buying a little piece of something every single week is a good way to get past that. Obviously, I don't have that problem. Almost every single week I have multiples that I've bought. But so let's jump into what I got this week. One small piece of a LRO on ground floor. So this is, if you don't know about ground floor, this is where you can buy small pieces of fix and flip loans or construction loans. And so this is a small piece of a loan. Now I have 119. This means I actually had more payoff this week because I think I had 120 last week. So I had more payoff than they provided new opportunities for me to buy. It's not great, right? I'm really trying to get this number higher before I start to put more money on the platform. But it seems, I actually have just some cash sitting in this account now until they give us some more LROs. So we'll see what goes on there. I made another purchase on ARC 7. If you've been watching the channel, I think last week I made my first purchase on ARC 7. It has been a while that I've been watching them, trying to find deals. And so this is a platform where it is, similar to an Arrived Homes, where they're, the company themselves are buying the properties, putting them in an entity, turning it into a security, registering that security with the SEC, and selling those. They have a secondary market where we're able to buy and sell. I don't love any of the deals that they have when they do their IPOs. That's just my opinion. I think that there's a ton of cost in that model that makes it so the deals aren't great. But they're starting to get on their secondary market some discounted deals, and just like we saw on Arrived, and nothing to the extent of the discounts that you see on Lofty just yet. I kind of don't think that we'll get there because I think that they're probably run a little bit better, and you have seen more stable returns from a lot of these properties. So I think it's unlikely that we'll ever get to these huge discounts that you see on Lofty. But I think because I think they're picking, decent property or decent markets, they're doing a lot. I think their main focus is properties that are going to be in areas that appreciate. And, if I can get a little bit of yield, and this one is, somewhere around a 5% dividend yield is what I'm getting on it. I own one share already, and then I ordered 13 more. This is just pending, the funds going through and everything. But I think that I'll actually end up with those. I'm not 100% positive. I still am not completely confident that I understand how when you put your orders in and then it, pulls the money from your bank account. If my shares are being pulled from the market then, or if it doesn't happen until it actually goes through. I think there were a lot more of them. Maybe not. Maybe we'll see. We'll see what happens. I also, I got a bonus because somebody else used my link and signed up. So I have a little buying power in there. I thought that's kind of funny. I know sometimes you guys do that on these different sites. I do always put the links in the description of the video. I appreciate it when you do that, but please do your own due diligence on any of the platforms that you see me investing on, any of the properties you see me buy. Just because I like the deal doesn't mean it's a good deal for you, especially on these ones where I'm talking about the property. I think the price makes sense relative to the property. I think the property is going to appreciate. But what you're actually buying is a security, and it's an ownership interest, and there's some legalities. Like, you have to really understand what you're getting. And that's not what, my goal is to just share my real estate insight, the way I'm looking at these deals. And so you want to make sure that you're really looking through like their offering circular. You understand what you're really buying, what you're, because it's not the same on every platform, right? And so you want to always do your own due diligence on both the platforms and the properties. And then also I want to mention, while I'm thinking about it, in the description of this video, there's also a link to the Discord I have set up. We've got about 200 investors buying fractional real estate on a regular basis. We're all in there talking about different platforms, different strategies, different properties. And there's tons of helpful discussions, especially especially on Mogul, a lot of people sharing their work as far as the due diligence on different properties. Some of the ones like ARC7, like Lofty, where there's only so many discounts. Some people like to keep it a little closer to the vest, right? They don't want to necessarily share the exact properties they're buying until they buy them. Because it is like, I mentioned this one, it's at a good discount. I go to try to buy these shares and someone else has gotten to them first or whatever. For me, it's not a big deal because, one, I'm not putting a ton of money on any of these platforms just yet. And I think it's good for all of us to sort of create this community. So I don't necessarily, I think in the long run, it's going to be better in any little bit of a return I'm giving up because somebody happens to buy these ones that are discounted before I do. I don't think it's a big deal. But, obviously, if you don't feel like telling us exactly what you're buying, you could say, hey, I bought 2 properties on ARC7 this week. I bought properties on Lofty, whatever it is, right? It's up to you what level of sharing your info you want to do. And then speaking of Lofty, and you can see I always share these in Lofty Assist because I just think it's a much more approachable user interface. But so what did I buy? I bought some tokens in the Sangamon Street. This is a duplex in Chicago. If you've been watching my channel for a while, I've owned this one before. I bought in around $22 per token. I sold out earlier this year when it got close to 30. It's all the way down to 22 again. There really hasn't been that big of a change on the property, right? This is a matter of when it's paying out yield, people bid it up. When it stops, they stop. And okay, they have to, they need money. They need to refill the operating reserve. They need money for taxes and insurance. There's some repairs that I think they replaced the roof. None of that changes the underlying value of the property. Yes, the money in the reserve is part of the value, but so is a new roof, right? It's silly to me that you see such a huge fluctuation in price. But I think that it's the same deal as I bought it at $22 before, so I did it again. If it pops again, I'll sell it again. That's where on Lofty I'm making most of my money is coming from this scenario, right? Buying cheap, selling when they go up. Some of them I've bought and sold multiple times, like Sangamon. I do want to share, I'm going to have to do another video on, I had another real world sale where I bought the tokens on here, we sold the property in real life. I have a second one where I lost some money. And I don't have very many of those, so I'm going to do a full video of that. I don't know how it was the Walsh property. I don't even know how we did so terrible on the sale. I was surprised to see what we sold that one for. Anyway, also bought a little bit more of this 86 Madison Ave. This is, again, it's based purely on getting a huge discount on these tokens, and I think it's a good discount relative to the real world value of this property. This is a property that's run as a short-term rental in Albany, New York, run by Earl. I think he does a good job as a co-owner. He brought it to the platform. He runs a bunch of these that are all connected. I'm invested in a couple of them. But, I'm just, when there's cheap tokens, I'm picking them up. I'm not just buying them across the board because some of them are pricier than others. But yeah, I think, it hasn't had wait, well, actually, no, this one has had decent yields, right? Average yield, 9.3. So, hey, that's pretty good. I bought some more of DK Ranch. This is a short-term rental in Austin, Texas. I've been buying this one for quite a while. I started buying at a price where, frankly, was probably a little too high. But now, when they're in this $30, $36 price range, I'm getting more. And again, 8.33% average yield over the past 12 months. I'm pretty happy with this one. And I think, I like the Austin market. This has a co-owner that's very quiet on the Discord, but he seems to just be chugging along. The property's performing. He's although I do remember that we haven't had an update on this mortgage being paid in a long time. I'm guessing that's just the person not interacting with Discord and the Dropbox very often, because we have continually been getting income and getting paid. I don't know that for sure. If you were going to buy this and you were worried about that, obviously reaching out, finding that out sooner rather than later would be ideal. I bought, I think, another token or two in Umland. And this is, again, just based on, I think it's a really big discount to what a real world, we sell this property in real life value would be. But this property has problems, right? And you can see it's listed by the owner. There's a outstanding water bill of over $30,000. The water's been shut off. The property's not operating. That's a huge problem, right? But relative to the price of the property, right, $1.3 million, $30,000 turns into not maybe as big of a problem, right? So I think once we get that figured out, we'll see these token prices move right back up. And then but if not, I believe we could sell this property in real life. And yeah, if we're trying to sell it quickly, maybe we get a little bit of a haircut on the price. But I think to me, it seems hard to get hurt at this, at this price point, right? And most of my average price point is actually slightly below that. And then 9 Country Club Lane. This is a vacation rental in Briarcliff Manor, New York. I talked about this one a little bit before. I thought it was overpriced when it came to the platform, but I think part of that is they didn't do a good job of really, really telling the story of what the potential is as far as on the revenue side, right? They didn't want to give us any sort of estimates beyond what they were getting from some third-party sources. This is going to be featured on an episode of Staycation. I think that will have a big impact, and we'll see a little pop. But more than anything, I bought this one because we have a $26 token price right now. So I just picked up a few more. I think at that price, this property just makes a ton of sense to me. Even if, I didn't love it at the full $50 token price. But I think once we start to, if the performance takes off, they also had some changing managers and had some problems with the old manager. And there's a lot of things going on with it. But if those get resolved and, we do see an increase in revenue like the co-owners expect there to be, yeah, I think it could be, I think it could turn into a real interesting deal. So I wanted to pick up just a few more tokens in that one. I'm really not adding money to Lofty. I think I mentioned I did last week, but I'm not. Most of these, I think all of these purchases, maybe I might have added a little bit to pick up some of those Sangamon. I don't remember, or I might have sold. Most of the time when I'm buying some tokens, it's because I either have rent that's accumulated in Lofty, or I'm selling some other tokens, or like I've redeemed some where there's been a real world sale, something like that. I still don't have a lot of faith in the platform itself. At a certain point, though, you just have these deals that, for me, are just too good to pass up, right? It's kind of like dumpster diving as far as fractional real estate goes, right? Like, you could get hurt, you could get something on you that you don't really want on you, but at the same time, you might find a real treasure that you're just picking up for free. And in this case, it's not really free, but when you can buy something that I think is worth, the actual liquidation value in the real world is $30 and we can buy it for $15, that's, in my mind, that's kind of like free money, right? I mean, there's obviously some risk to it, but it is, it's worth it. I think that, for me, it's worth taking that risk. And that's why I haven't taken all my money off Lofty, despite all the criticisms that I've made about the platform. I do think if they ever got their act together and ran things well, in a way that, really created some trust with the average user of the platform, that a lot of these tokens prices could go back very close to where they started. Some of them are never going to get to 50 again, right? Some of them, the property should have never been listed at that price. But a lot of them, yeah, I want to buy these at 25 or 26. But there's, I think there'd be a lot more demand at a higher price for a lot of these tokens if people trusted the platform more, for one, and then trusted that the platform was policing the DAOs and the co-owners and actually helping with the due diligence a little bit more than they do. I think we could see a real turnaround. So, in the meantime, I'm only buying stuff where I think that the discount is so compelling. And I really, I strongly believe I'll make a very good return on it relative to the risk that I'm taking. Anyway, that's it for me for today. That's everything I bought this week. Please share what you're buying. And until next time, I'm just going to keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.